Hello, thank you for watching this presentation of from the Punta Gorda History Center. Today we're going to talk about where people stayed, Punta Gorda hotels, motels, boarding houses, and lodges. I'm Marge Hall. In the pre-railroad era, before 1886, rugged pioneers, seasonal fishermen, cattlemen, and adventurers came to the area we now know as Punta Gorda. They came by water in sailing vessels, steamships, or overland by horseback, wagons, or walking. Primitive housing was constructed to match the unconquered landscape. Isaac Trabu came to Florida in 1855 and purchased 380 acres, hired a surveyor to lay out the town of Trabu, and the rest was history. Before Isaac Trabu, Cuban fishermen established dwellings on the islands within Charlotte Harbor as early as 1769. They used these dwellings during the heavy season of Lent when fish were in high demand in Cuba. No one knew for sure who built it or when, but it was considered the first house, occupied by both the Laniers and Trabus. It was located on Red Esplanade in Harvey Park. This photograph is from a woodcut that appeared in the Florida Times-Union in 1896. The Florida Southern Railway was completed to its terminus in Punta Gorda in July 1886. 200 workmen and supplies immediately began to build the large Hotel Punta Gorda for wealthy winter visitors, 100 miles further south than any other first-class hotel in the United States. Adventurers, sportsmen, merchants, tradesmen, salesmen, pioneers of all sorts came to see what was at the end of the rail line. They needed places to stay when they arrived. Even before the rail line was completed in 1886, the lumber to construct the Peace River Lodge was shipped by schooner from Mobile, Alabama to the new town of Cleveland, Florida, just a few miles up what we know as Route 17. Dr. A.T. Holloman, the developer of this new town, built a lodge to accommodate some 40 guests. 20 bedrooms, 10 baths on second floor, plus the owner's suite. Later, George Calhoun, a state senator from New York, owned the resort, and it was known as the National Hotel. The photo seen here shows how it looked in 1925. I don't know how they got this shot, but this is a picture of what Punta Gorda looked like while they were constructing the Hotel Punta Gorda. You can see the construction site where the arrow indicates and the railroad dock that by October of 1886 reached 2,000 feet into the bay. Construction continued on the Hotel Punta Gorda. This is the side that faced Marion Avenue. This is the side seen by the bay. You can still see the construction materials in the corner. The completion of the Hotel Punta Gorda helped make Punta Gorda a destination resort. An ad in the New York Tribune on February 16th indicated it would open February 20, 1887. Elegantly furnished, it had gas lights, electric bells, steam heat, and open fireplaces. 3 stories high, it had large promenade verandas and contained 135 rooms, every one a front room facing the water. During its first season, it had 3,320 guests. In this 1909 Sanborn map, the layout of the Hotel Punta Gorda can be seen, and you can note that it was closed since 1906. So from 1887 till 1906, it operated as a grand hotel. During that time, the Hotel Punta Gorda lobby boasted fishing trophies and a collection of tarpon scales. Who knew collecting tarpon scales was a thing? Florida resorts hotels were not always financial successes, and the Hotel Punta Gorda was not an exception. In 1910, the Punta Gorda Herald said that the big unsightly building continues to be an eyesore and standing idle and ugly for 9 years past is actually a curse to the community. The Hotel Punta Gorda limped along until it was purchased in 1925 by Baron Collier. We'll talk more about that when we get to the automobile era. In June of 1886, workmen driving the pilings for the wharf were in the habit of going naked while working in the water, as there were no white women in town. Ephraim Abe Goldstein persuaded them to wear their clothing thereafter, as his wife was arriving the next day. He also persuaded carpenters working on the Hotel Punta Gorda to devote one day to build this two-story home for his wife and son, who were unexpectedly due to arrive in the next day or so. Starting with available materials early in the morning, by nightfall they had completed construction of this two-story multi-room house. Abe installed Frederica and Harry in the house, then he named it the Pioneer House and operated it as a rooming house. When a group of Boston capitalists arrived to see about the hotel, they went to Goldstein's, the only house in town at the time, and asked for a seafood dinner. Rough tables were temporarily arranged the length of the room, and the entire bunch of visitors enjoyed what is believed to have been the first seafood meal served to tourists in Punta Gorda. By 1958, at 72 years old, the house was getting a little tired and began leaning on the neighboring building. Work to raise the building began in September 1968. It took skilled workmen 3 weeks to tear it down, but only one day to build it. In 1891, the El Palmetto Cigar Manufacturing Company was organized in Punta Gorda, and a wooden frame factory building and a row of cottages for workers were built at the southeast corner of Virginia Avenue and Cochrane Street. In 1901, the cigar industry in Punta Gorda moved to Tampa to Ybor City, and the buildings were sold to D.H. Huxkey, who moved several of the buildings to Brown and Wood Streets. 2 of these buildings were purchased for $50 each by C.M. Mays on October 25, 1924. The homes consist of 1 bedroom, living room, and kitchen. The duplex can be seen at the Punta Gorda History Park on Shreve Street. The Dade Hotel was built in 1887 at the corner of Marion Avenue and Taylor Street. This 2-story, 22-room hotel had a fine dining room and was the commercial hotel in Punta Gorda. For many years, Dade Hotel was the residence of Albert Gilchrist, who arrived with the railroad surveying party as cruise chief. He continued with the railroad to supervise the construction of the long dock and the 1,200-foot pier at the Hotel Punta Gorda. Gilchrist lost his bid as first mayor of Punta Gorda by 2 votes. Florida voters elected Gilchrist governor for a term starting in 1900. Its name was changed to the New Southland, and in January 1914, it became the Seminole Hotel. You can see in the inset the 1914 Sanborn map showing the layout of the interior of the building. A great ovation greeted Colonel Theodore Roosevelt when he arrived in Punta Gorda on a Sunday during the last week of March 1917. He enjoyed a week of fishing and returned to Punta Gorda on the following Sunday. But on those days, he stayed at the Seminole Hotel. In 1920, the structure of the Seminole Hotel was placed on logs and rolled 1 block to the corner of Marion and Sullivan Street. It suffered damage in the hurricane in 1921 and was destroyed in a fire in 1923. The car wash there by Hessler's Flooring is the site where this tragedy occurred. Behind the boy on the bicycle is the Ingram Hotel. It was a boarding house for Negroes and was located on King Street across the railroad tracks from the Hotel Punta Gorda. In 1914, it was renamed the Travelers Hotel, and it was used by travelers, particularly drummers, another name for salesmen, when they came to town. One of the most exciting things was when the minstrel shows came to town for one-night stands. They'd set up their big tents on the vacant lot by the Travelers Hotel. The African-American minstrels came in on the noon train and always had a parade. This aerial photo of the intersection of Marion Avenue and King Street was taken from the tower roof of the Hotel Punta Gorda. Zooming in, we can just make out the Smith Bakery, Cafe, and Hotel on East Marion Avenue. The original Smith Bakery had been destroyed in the fire of 1905, which took out the entire south side of the block of West Marion Avenue between King and Taylor. Originally called the Bayview Hotel, it built in 1909, but prior to 1914, and by 1925 was renamed the Smith Hotel, and it had expanded to include a grocery store, a cafe, and offices. On November 4th, 1914 advertisement offered the 23-room concrete structure of the Smith Hotel for sale. Later, Henry Smith built the first shopping arcade in Charlotte County on the site. It had a half-dozen shops and the post office fronting on the central corridor. He lost everything during the Great Depression, but the Smith Arcade has been beautifully restored and is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. Historian Lindsay Williams' book indicated this building burned down in 1972. Across East Marion Avenue from Smith Hotel is the Olive, which on the 1925 Sanborn map occupied the second floor of lots 218 and 220 East Marion Avenue. The Price House was actually two independent buildings in 1914. When Maxwell Charles Price, the first city engineer and later city manager, made this his home and connected two buildings with a porch at 115 Gilchrist Street. The Searles purchased the home in the 1980s and ran it as the Gilchrist Bed and Breakfast Inn. In 2010, the building was moved to the Punta Gorda History Park. Wide-scale adoption of automobiles by the general population signaled the end of the passenger rail system. The Charlotte Harbor Bridge, the first bridge to cross the Peace River, opened on July 4, 1921, and it was replaced in 1931. The Tamiami Trail and other interstate roadways connected Florida to the population centers in New England, the Mid-Atlantic, the Midwest, and Southern states. Motels, tourist cabins, and the municipal campgrounds welcomed visitors traveling to Florida in automobiles. Baron Collier purchased the Hotel Punta Gorda in 1925. The old wooden siding was covered with chicken wire and stucco was applied to make the building appear to be masonry construction. Renovations enlarged it, added modern plumbing and amenities. A grand ballroom was added as a fifth floor to the tower. Dredged fill from the new yacht basin enlarged the front grounds where a swimming pool and tennis courts were added. It reopened in 1927 under the name the Hotel Charlotte Harbor, although the Sanborn maps continued to list it as Hotel Punta Gorda. The online collection at the Punta Gorda History Center has lots of photos of the interior and exterior of the Hotel Charlotte Harbor. In this aerial shot of Punta Gorda, taken in about 1935, you can see the Hotel Charlotte Harbor in the middle of the picture. You can see the Charlotte Bay Hotel, which we'll talk about in a minute. You can see the Travelers Hotel just across the King Street from the Great Hotel. You can see the beginnings of the municipal trailer park on the causeway of the old Charlotte Harbor Bridge and the Baron Collier Bridge that replaced it. This really ushered in the automobile era. Built in 1925, the Charlotte Bay Hotel was built on the site of the former Seminole Hotel. This was the city's main commercial hotel and, of course, welcomed winter visitors. Catering to automobiles, a modest garage was built under the Charlotte Bay Hotel at ground level, much like the parking spaces under the Sunloft building, which now occupies this location. Miss H. Ray Skull purchased the property in about 1940 and renamed it the Princess Hotel. This structure eventually fell victim to fire in 1979. They were called tin can tourists, and they not only came in house trailers, some were in tents as well. Municipalities all over the country built facilities to attract them, and during the Depression, their contributions to the life and economy of their host community was appreciated. In 1933, with federal funding, a community center was built in the Punta Gorda Municipal Trailer Park. The rustic cypress log building was 80 feet by 100 feet and contained a dance floor and stage. Later, a concrete block building would replace the log structure. By the 1950s, the Punta Gorda Municipal Trailer Park was morphing into a less transient mobile home park, and by 1993, its 17 acres were developed into Lashley Park. In 1896, 215 Goldstein Street was the site of Punta Gorda's first high school. The building in this photo was the new school built on the site in 1909. After Charlotte High School was built out on Cooper Street, this building served as the city's first hospital, and during the 20s, the Chadwick brothers remodeled it for a hotel called The Inn. In the 1930s, it became the Moss Apartments, and it has remained an apartment house through several more renovations. This picture was just taken in 2021. The Allapache Lodge was the inspiration of Lewis Calder, president of Union Bag and Paper Company. It was built on Alligator Creek to entertain their customers with the best of outdoor recreation in the late 1920s. For many years, the lodge, seen here in 1930, served the executives and customers of the famous paper company. It was located about where the 8th hole at the Twin Owls Golf Course is today. The Hotel Charlotte Harbor prospered during the late 20s and 30s. Charlotte High School had its prom at the hotel, and Boy Scout Troop 5 had its annual banquet there. In 1946, Collier sold the hotel to Floyd Alford, who shared Collier's success. Alford encouraged locals to use the swimming pool during the summer, and many local residents said that's where they learned to swim. By 1956, the hotel had started to age and had trouble competing with modern hotels. Martin Fleischmann bought it for $400,000 and changed the name to the Charlotte Harbor Spa. Fleischmann's plan was to offer spa services in hopes that guests could write off their vacations as medical expenses. Then, on August 14, 1959, fire destroyed the building in the early morning hours. That was the last vestiges of the Railroad Era Hotel. Perry W. McAdowell built this house in 1897. Subsequent owners ran the property as the Bay Shore Lodge and Motel. All was destroyed by Hurricane Donna in 1960, and all that is left is the big banyan tree at the entrance to Gilchrist Park, across the corner of Retta Esplanade and Harvey Street. Drive north on Route 17 or south on Route 41 and you will see vestiges of roadside motels from a bygone era. Many have been turned into studio apartments. Here are photos of two such examples. When lodgers complained of the smell, the commercial fish trade was relocated from the dock beside the Hotel Charlotte Harbor to Maud Street. A fire on May 19, 1939, took 3 lives, left 1 operating fish company, and dealt a severe blow to the area economy. In the 1980s, Fisherman's Village was built on the Maud Dock. Outside of town, a KOA campground was built off of Rio Villa, which is now the Harbor Belle RV Resort. This aerial view shows 2 waterfront hotels that were instrumental during the development of Punta Gorda Isles. Vernon Peoples called the Isles the most significant development in the city's history. In the mid-20th century, seasonal vacationers coming to Punta Gorda began putting down roots by purchasing home sites. While they were selecting their lots, they stayed in these hotels. The Howard Johnson's Hotel was built on the yacht basin that Collier put in for the Hotel Charlotte Harbor. On the hotel site itself, you can see the Punta Gorda Mall that was built in its place after the fire. To the left of to the right rather, of the Charlotte Harbor Bridge, you can see the municipal trailer park. While other airlines tried commercial travel to Punta Gorda Airport, in 2009, Allegiant became the exclusive commercial carrier. More than 45 destination cities are served from Punta Gorda via Allegiant Airlines. To cater to the airline traveling visitors, Allegiant is building Sunseeker Resort on the bayfront in Charlotte Harbor. When the COVID-19 pandemic hit in December of 2019, Allegiant put the brakes on the Sunseeker project. We sure hope they secure funding and are able to complete the resort. Meanwhile, the 4 Points by Sheraton, which is on the site of the former Holiday Inn, and the Wyvern, which is on the site of the former Travelers Hotel, the PG Waterfront Hotel at the former Holiday Inn Best Western site, and the Holiday Inn Express, our newest downtown hotel, are serving our traveling public, and we're happy to have them. Thank you for watching this presentation of the Punta Gorda History Center, and we look forward to talking to you in the future.